Hello and welcome to Flow Tricks. It is Ken. Ooh, that is dark. Hold on one second. This is our... Okay, it might be a little bit dark. I'm short one light right now. I'm gonna fix that soon. This is the regular Sunday night live open forum. So this whole thing is based on questions you want to ask me. If you want to ask me about nunchucks, double chucks, staff, double staff, things of that nature, I am more than happy to help you, or even with performance flow or anything of that nature, booking gigs. This is the time to ask. I'm more than happy to help. We'll probably be doing this like a half hour to an hour, sometimes longer. It just depends on what the questions are. Pretty much I'm just going to go until all the questions are done. So if you do have a question, this open forum, the thing that makes this magical is the fact that I'm responding in real time. Before we begin, as always, I hope you guys are all doing well through this COVID thing. It's been a little bit of a rough week for me. Just in personal life, it's been just insane, because I think life is just crazy and it goes up and down, it goes in cycles. And when it goes down, there's a lot of things that go down, and when it goes up, there's a lot of things that go up. And in those cases, I'm just really glad I got flow, though. I really am, man, because it's whenever I feel stressed or I just, this week, but then I just grab my chucks, I grab my staff, I just lose myself in music. And all of that expresses itself through motion instead of some sort of negative habit. I don't have to drink, or I don't have to, you know what I'm saying? I get to do something that expresses myself and makes me feel powerful again and get back in control of my life. And that's really good. And I think sometimes the most control we can have is just to give up most of our control and just focus on what we really can control. A lot of times we think we can control this much when really we can only control this much. And what's causing us the most problems in our life is the fact that we're looking at this big circle thinking we can move it when it's actually outside of our control. I think being okay with that is a good way to be happy, So I think sometimes when I just spin, it just gives me that insight to remember this is something I can do. This is something I can control. Anyway, so yeah, my whole point of saying that was just I hope you all are doing well. Understand if you are, there is a little struggle though. I think we're all kind of going through it. I think COVID's going to last a lot longer than we want it to, and all that jazz. So, again, any questions, be sure to just send me a message, and I'm more than happy to answer. I'm going to go ahead and give some shout-outs. Let me just see here. Definitely want to shout out to the first person that responded, which is CM, is it KJ? How's it going? I'm actually just going to read off this question right now. He says, "Hey dude, you're super underrated. My question, I've been wanting to learn nunchucks for a while, but never actually started." I want to thank you. I feel like all that matters is that I help a few people, but if I really wanted to get higher ratings, I would also do a lot more work. So some of it's my fault because when you look at the YouTubers that are making it, they spend a lot of time working on their thumbnails and drawing outlines of their bodies and upgrading all their stuff. And for me, it's I just want to get the information out there. So it's a little bit more raw. It's not as refined. And I'm sure if I cleaned it up and spent a lot more time, it's just, I run out of time a lot. So, that's what I like about the live stream though. What I like about the live stream is I can answer these questions directly. So the question that you have is, you want to learn nunchucks for a while, but you've never actually started. I've got an hour and a half class. It's kind of long, but I think it's called Badass Nunchucks or something. Let me double check here. I'm gonna turn this on and see if we can find this really quick. It's a long one, but it's a great primer for getting started, which is why I wanted to show that to you. Ken Hill Badass Nunchuck. I think that's what I called it, but I might be wrong here. And it's gonna have a very long time signature. So let me just go on YouTube here. Whoosh. Let's take a look and see what we can find. I figured today could kind of be a YouTube day too. So I've got a few things up my sleeve for it. Sorry, I don't remember the name of it. I thought that's what it was. It's a long one though, I do know that. I'm gonna try one more thing here. But that's gonna be a good start because there's a lot to cover. We'll go long, over 20 minutes. There it is. Okay, this is it right here. This right here, Learn to Spin Nunchucks for Beginners, Creative Nunchaku Tricks and Techniques. That's an hour and 45 minutes long. It's actually about 10 years old, so I'm not able to break things down as like I can now, but it's still a fantastic primer, and you've got an hour 45 minutes, and it will teach you, because there's a lot of fundamentals to work with, like what planes are and how to spin cleaner and how to get the basic moves, and they all build off the foundations. after you finish that video, you know, I've got hundreds of videos, but the trick is you kind of just pick a thought or a technique. For instance, nothing really goes in order once you get past the fundamentals. Like, people can take it all different directions, which is why people have such different spinning styles. So one thing I would recommend is get the foundations down really well, see what you like, right? Find a name, like for instance, Moonwave, right? Say you like the Moonwave and you learn that in the basics, then just type up Moonwave nunchaku and see what variations people have made, or yourself start playing with it, and that's kind of where it goes. And then it's kind of a self-exploration thing from there. And then of course too, like if I'm doing a live stream, you can always send me a video. I'm ken.flowtricks@gmail.com, and I'm happy to review it as long as you don't mind that I show it to all my viewers online, you know, and I can give you some tips and advice to help you forward. He said, oh, I know a few things, but is it supposed to hurt when you flip it over your back and hit your waist, or am I doing it wrong? So it should never hurt. Like, you should never feel pain. There's probably something going on that's a little bit wrong. When you're using nunchucks, a lot of the pain comes from force. So why don't we just go over to the main camera real quick here. So when you're using nunchucks, even before you watch any of the videos, no matter where you are in your basics, there's a couple things to really keep in mind. And if you think of a baseball bat, I don't have a baseball bat. Pretend I have a baseball bat right here, right? The most power in a baseball bat is going to be at the top, right? So when you swing it, if you hit someone with this part of the bat, it's not going to hurt nearly as much as this part, which is why in martial arts, most people run in if they're trying to disarm or take the force away, because if they get hit with this is not nearly the same force as that, right? And with nunchucks, we're looking at the same thing. If you're doing passes and the tip of the chuck hits you, that is where all the damage is. That's where all the force is. Also, the way that you hold it. If you hold it lower, this makes this longer, creating more damage, creating more force. So if I hold it at the end and I swing it and I hit you at the end, this is going to create the most force that you can. So when we do combat nunchucks, if we're fighting, we're going to hold it low so we can generate more power, generally speaking. When you hold it up high, then you have more control. When you hold it low, you're going to have more power because it's going to have more distance. So things to keep in mind: if you're hurting yourself, first, hold higher. Second, make sure you're not, if you are hitting yourself, like if it's bouncing, make sure this part is bouncing off of you and not this part. This part's going to make a lot more damage than this part, especially after like a minute of doing different bounce combos. If you're hitting yourself with the edge the whole time, you're going to wear and tear your body very fast. So what you want to make sure is it's nice and close, and also the type of chuck that you're using. If you're using padded chucks, it's usually a lot easier, but it's usually a little bit bouncier, a little bit harder. But if you're using heavy chucks like oaks, if you're using metal chucks or even fire nunchucks or just heavier chucks, then you have to learn something that I would call padding. And what padding is like if you're going to swing and bounce it, you're going to create a little bit of a stall point before it hits. And if you can learn to do this, then you can take out probably like half of the force out of the nunchuck before it hits you. And what basically that is, for instance, if I was to just spin the chuck regularly like this and I hold out my hand, you can just see that force hitting my hand, and it does not feel good. And after a few minutes, it's going to hurt. But if I stall into it, so as this is spinning, if I kind of move my hand in the direction of the chuck at the last minute, so if my hand, so this is spinning like this, right, spinning in a circle, and right before it hits something, I move my hand into the way, it steals all the force from the nunchuck. So if I do it that way, all of a sudden there's barely any force that's hitting my arm. And when you can learn to do this very quickly with heavy chucks, so you don't damage yourself, not nearly as much. You can pad away like half of the damage. So those are going to be the three things that I'm going to recommend to you. Make sure you're holding it high. Make sure you're not hitting yourself low, and if you are using heavy chucks, learn how to pad it. Learn how to pad it so you're not taking the full force with the chucks. All right, and then of course the other suggestion, just watch that Learn to Spin Nunchucks for, okay, it's called Learn to Spin Nunchucks for Beginners, Creative Weapon Nunchaku Tricks and Techniques. It's an hour and 45 minutes long, and you can always do a filter and search for videos that are above 20 minutes, and it should be pretty easy to find. I think that should be helpful, just because it is like the first fundamentals will take the longest, and it sounds like you already got some of them, but it might be helpful just to go through the whole primer just to see what you do know. Yeah. All right. Hello, TuneAir. Hi, I've seen many of your videos of your talent using nunchucks. Thank you. Love and respect from India. Nice. Hey, wonderful. And welcome, welcome, welcome. We don't have as many questions as we usually do, and that's okay. That's okay, because I did get, oh nice, hold on one second. Checking Facebook too, because I never get the right updates. I just want to make sure here. All right. So like if you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask, because we're having a little bit less questions, but I do have some videos that I want to share, as well as someone had sent me a video to review this week. Now, if you want me to review your video, I may not be able to get to it today. Usually it takes a little bit of preparation to download it, but send me an email at ken.flowtricks, flowtricks @gmail.com, and more than happy to take a look, and maybe next Sunday we'll take care of it. With that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the video that was submitted to me. Give me just a minute here. Where is that video? All right, here we are. I believe, oh shoot, I forgot the name of the person who sent it. My apologies. I think it was Alex. But let's just take a look. It's a little bit dark, and it looks frozen. Okay, so I really like that stall you did there. Wow, let's try that again. I think that was my technical difficulty. I think that was a glitch. There we go. So you got some 2 beats going on with doubles. That's nice. That's nice. Cool. Got 2 beats going sideways. Looks like you got some hand rolls too. Oh, that's great. All right, give me just a second here. Let me see if I can find if there was any particular question with that as well. I think he's probably asking, my apologies, I kind of lost this in my email. Usually I have the name and what the question is. I'm guessing you're wondering what to do next. So what you can see right now is you got this 2 beat going on, which is great. And you also have 2 beats going 2 different directions. Let's go ahead and go back here. I'm gonna give you a little bit of advice as to where you can go from there. I'm gonna go to the main camera. All right, come on camera. All right, so he's doing the 2 beats. He's facing the camera right now and doing 2 beats this way. And he's also able to do 2 beats front and back, which is great. Most of the time, when I recommend 2 beats, I recommend it if you're standing facing the camera or facing a person, that you do them front and back. And if you're going this direction where you're crossing your body, you do it sideways, like this. The reason for that is because they can combine together. Like we can go from here and spin it out and come this direction too. So it's gonna be kind of important to do in the future with the facings and things that you can do to do it this way, but that's not always the case. Let's go ahead and start with this one to begin with. I'm just gonna go with the facing you gave me, but I will say, learn to kind of go this direction too, because eventually what we're gonna wanna work on is being able to turn the other way and do them both sides, both directions. So we're here. That's really interesting actually. And then you can spin it the other way. I'm trying to figure out how to get that beat. I'm used to doing it with 3 beats here, which is super. It's actually funny when we go down to 2 beats. It's been so long that my brain still has to fathom how to break that down. So let's go ahead and do this really quick. So what's happening right now is you're doing a 2 beat, and a 2 beat is basically a circle spinning on this direction and a circle spinning on this direction, right? This kind of works with single nunchucks too. The thing I want to show you has to do more with the middle lane and understanding that just because you create a circle here and a circle here, you can move these circles around to create different effects. So if I have a single nunchuck, for instance, I can do a figure 8 like this, crosses to the left side of my body, crosses to the right, like you usually see. But if you stop it at your chest, you can have different abilities that happen. You have different techniques. So now I've kind of focused the nunchuck to stop at my chest here and to go to the outside of my body here, right? So it's a little bit different than this, but what can you do with this, right? Well, if we're doing a single chuck, and this will get to double chucks in a second, I just kind of want to give you this idea, this thought in your head, that it doesn't have to cross the body and it'll give you more moves. One thing you can do with a single chuck is you can catch it right here. So you can do a pass, you can just hold your hand out in front of your chest like this, and you can pass it. And then you can take your front hand, you can push it upwards, and you can do a figure 8 on the other end. This is called the middle lane. So if you do it that way, what you can do is do the same thing again. You're going to pass it back to your chest, and this pops up and it goes back. And eventually you should be able to pass it back and forth like this. So now you have like a different kind of feel, a different kind of energy that you could if you were here. Because if you're over here, you can't really grab it, you've passed your body. But if you stay on the inside, you have this whole nother part that's right here. And when you're doing nunchucks with doubles, it's the same thing. If we push it closer in, we can get to our armpits. Now we can't get to the center because our hands are full. So we don't want to get to the center here because there's not a lot we can do. However, we can get into this, which I'll show you in a second. I'm just going to show you this one first. So what we're going to do is we have circles coming here and here. First, we're gonna take a circle and we're just gonna move it from the armpit out, and then I'll show you the buzzsaw too. So here, 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 here. Now we're gonna just kind of get it closer like this. So the way this works is less arm movement, a little bit more twist to the wrist, and less arm, more wrist, right? So we're taking it in here and here. If you need help with getting this inside, it's a good, nice drop down to get it to work. And then eventually you'll be able to get it close like this. And what I'd like to see is, I'd just like to see you pull your elbows up like this and see if you can just kind of get this to tuck underneath your armpits. And as you get that, go ahead and see if you can pull it down and catch it. Now, don't do this too fast to start if this feels new to you. Just see if you can catch it like this. Once you catch it, you can kind of, basically we're taking our hands and we're kind of pushing upwards like this to pop it out, right? So we're gonna push it, pop it out. And then as soon as we pop it out, we're gonna kind of push it diagonally out this way so we can go back to this. So here, whoosh, and back. You should be able to go here and take it smaller and back. Oops, sorry, we're going into the 3 beats. Catch, pop, catch, pop, pop. In slow motion, right? So all we did there was we just made the figure 8s smaller, the 2 beats smaller, to the armpit. So go ahead, that's gonna be your first thing I wanna show you. And the second thing that I wanna show you is we can go even closer. Now we can go to the center. I showed you something called the buzzsaw, and that's kind of what we can do. To do the buzzsaw, they have to be moving opposite time, or they have to be moving in split direction. They have to be moving in split time. They're still going the same direction. And basically what happens is, I'm gonna show you how to get this to work first. These have to be offset. So if both of your chucks are moving in and out at the same time, you have to move one slightly faster. One has to be up while the other one's down. And that's how it always works, is it always is in the opposite direction. Just like if my hands were moving, one's up, one's down, and that allows us to get this roll, right? And it'll be the same thing with this. You're gonna move this to the top here, and you're gonna kind of rotate it this direction. See, we're just making a circle with our hand. Rotate, it's always on the opposite side, right? And then eventually, we're gonna add some speed to it. Now, you can't really go in a circle too much because you'll hit yourself. So what really needs to happen is the hand goes up and down. There is just a little bit, if you need the boost, you can, but it's generally more up and down like this. And when one is up, so get it circle to start, and when one is up, the other's down. And when one hand's up, the other's down. And as you start to feel this, you move it closer and closer together until it feels right. So we're here, stop it here for a second, start with the right hand to get it up, and then start moving them together like this. They should always be chasing each other, and the way to get that chase is to make sure one hand is up while the other's down. As you start to feel this, you don't have to move your arms so much, and you can pull it over into your elbows, eventually into your wrists and into your fingers. So here's the arms, here's the elbows, here's the wrists, and then here's the fingers. We can get it nice and tight from there. From there, we can do the same thing. We can just kind of pull it out and back into the 2 beats. So you have boom, right? Boom, boom. And then you also have this motion, like this. And again, if you looked at it really closely, because I have to change the timing, it can't be at the same direction. If it's at the same time, it looks like this. So as we go in here, we halt one, we push one forward, and then we start moving it. One hand up, one hand down, until we get it nice and even, boom. Now, another thing to consider, you could hit your chin, so be really careful. Do not use heavy chucks when you're first learning this. Lock your arms out, make sure they're wide enough so you don't hit your elbow in here. Like, you can't keep it too close because you could hit your elbow, you could hit your chin. So really push it out. And if you still are having problems, push your thumbs out this way. You'll even create more space if you push it out this way. So if your arms are short, you could still hit yourself. Twist your wrist outward to get even more of a buzzsaw, especially if you have longer chucks. So it's the difference between inward to outward. My hands haven't changed space. Ugh. My hands haven't changed space, I just changed the angle at which my wrists are pointing. So I hope this helps. I feel like that's a really good start for double nunchucks for where you're at, because you can already do the 2 beat. So let's just start thinking about where you can put your arms as they cross, where you can put that Or you can take that and just move it in space and see where it goes. All right, so that was a good one. That was a good question. I'm gonna go ahead and see if there's any questions here. Perfect. Gotta check Facebook manually, just because like I can read the YouTube ones they always fit right there. Like I can see everything with that. But on Facebook, people have asked me questions and I don't always see it, so I need to make sure. So what I'd like to do then is I'm gonna go over some videos. You know, usually I'm just jamming until someone has a question for me. But today I'd like to look over some videos and kind of show like some of my inspirations when I was first starting out, as well as show some of the labs that I've worked on 10, 12 years ago to show like where nunchucks was, as well as maybe give you some inspiration for some new moves. So, let's see. CMK says, KJ says, appreciate the answer. I'll definitely be sure to check out that video. Awesome. Good. Yeah, I feel like that's a good one. Yeah, and you know, for being underrated, like I said, you know, I still have a nice Patreon page, and it almost pays my rent, so that's always nice. It's actually the only thing, like, because I am a full-time, or I was a full-time performer, and that was what was keeping me going for years. And it's still nice to know that I have a nice, you know, YouTube channel where people want to support and keep this going and help it grow. So it's really fantastic in that way too. I'm gonna go ahead and go over to the. Go ahead and go to some videos I want to show. First one is a video that is not mine. Hold on one second here. So, stop it. YouTube always want me to do this. This video is 12 years old. And the cool thing about this video is it shows you how to spin nunchucks without using your hands. This guy was one of my idols when I first started spinning nunchucks. Don't think that I was the first nunchuck spinner. I was just one of the ones that just got it out to the public the fastest. All right, here we go. Check this out. Ah. So if you look at that, what he's doing is he's letting the chuck hit his shoulder and then it's rolling to the other side. This is actually, for those that know contact staff or do flow arts, this is pretty simple, like to do with a staff. But with the nunchuck, it's very difficult because it always wants to fold over. And this guy was doing it 12 years ago. "12 years ago, you guys. Crazy." Love that one. Tell me that guy's not a monster. What a monster. Ah. Love that one. That would actually be the beginning of something called a matrix, I believe. That's a solid throw. The arse throw. So that pinch that you see is very common with contact staff. It's a way to grab the chucks, and it might be something you've never thought about, which is grabbing the chucks with your neck. Now, you've got to practice it, obviously, and you can pinch yourself if you do it wrong, but it's just another point that a lot of people haven't thought about. This is why I'm excited to show you guys this, because this guy was ahead of his time, and he's still pretty solid, even by today's standards, especially. Yeah, still. It's crazy. That's a great throw. Great throw combo. That's shoulder, neck, shoulder. SNS. Shoulder, neck, shoulder. See? So SNS is shoulder, neck, shoulder. You'll see he passes to his shoulder, rolls off his neck, and lands in his other shoulder. All right, dude. Now you're just showing off. Seriously. There it is. 12 years ago. Let me know what you guys think about that one. Pretty wild, right? Let me go ahead and get back here to the front camera. So, what exactly did we just see? This is called contact chucks, and it's a very specific, very, very difficult art. A lot of the moves that you do with contact chucks will take a lot longer to do than with regular chucks, obviously, because you're not using your hand anymore. But there's also a specific build that you have to have for the chucks to really capitalize on it. So you want the rope to be very short, and you need the chucks to be very long. So if you think about it, it almost emulates a staff. You know, like 14 to 16 inch chucks with, instead of 5 inch, you might want 2 inches of rope or chain. So it limits chain manipulations and whatnot, but the longer your rope is, the more it's going to bend and fold when you're spinning it around, giving you less access. Which is why when people ask me what kind of chucks I like, it really depends on your style, because if you want to do that style, you have to get a very specific type of chuck if you really want to capitalize on it. And I only know a few people that can do it well. Unfortunately, Rob Nunchucks is the name of that guy. He doesn't really do a whole lot of videos that I've seen in a while, but he was way ahead of his time. The nice thing is I do know there's like a guy named John Oswald who still works with contact chucks. I just think it's a fantastic skill. For me, it's not my style, so I wanted to share like some of the alternatives to like what, especially like this is one of my big inspirations growing up with nunchucks. And while I didn't, because I started about 12 years ago into freestyle, so this came out right around when I was first starting, and you know, of course my brain was melted at the time, but I took some of those moves and couldn't do them, but I ended up creating my own moves out of them, so that's pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna see if there's any questions here. Okay, so CMKJ says, so is the same thing too much with avoiding nunchuck pinching? You have to find the balance of not being hit by the end or too high. If the chucks are pinching, I'm assuming you're using a chain, but it may not be the chain. There's two big reasons why your nunchucks pinch. Well, there's three actually. There's three reasons why your nunchucks pinch. Let's go ahead and talk about why your nunchucks will pinch. The first is your nunchucks itself are made to pinch. Now, you may not think nunchucks, no one really builds nunchucks to pinch, but a lot of nunchuck makers, if they make them for weapons, they're not thinking about how it's going to roll across your hand. So if you have nunchucks that have rigid edges over here, as you roll it, what's going to happen is the rigid edge can sometimes get your skin caught in between it, and as it bends over, it folds and gets stuck in between the nunchuck and the rope or the chain, and it'll pinch it that way. So if you have like a combat chuck, there's a chance that it could be pinching because of that. The way to get around that is simply take a little bit of tape, like for instance electrical tape, and wrap it around the top so it smooths out the edges. Because what's happening right there is the edge is pinching against your hand, so it almost creates like a little trap for your finger or whatever to get like pinched inward, you know, and possibly even cut. I've cut myself before with chucks. Another thing that could be pinching you is your technique. There's certain techniques that pinch more than others. For instance, chain unwinders. When you're doing this one is notorious for pinching you if you do anything even in the slightest bit wrong, because the whole point of it is that it's the technique is rolling and just exposing you to these rolling points often. So often enough to where you could be pinching yourself all the time. And then the last one could also be your release time. So the release time, like for instance, if we do a hand roll, depending on when I open and close my hand will depend on how the chucks move. Now, if I open and close my hand just right, it's going to be a nice smooth movement like this, but it's not always smooth for everyone, including myself. When I first started, it was not a smooth movement. So if you open your hand up, let's see, if you open it up too early, it's going to have like this, you can see it kind of it has like this jagged movement like this, you know, because what's happening is if you open it too early, it's going to float in the air and it can hit you and you can get bruised from the nunchuck hitting you because it's doing a very small throw. On the other hand, if you open it too late, then what could happen is the nunchuck could go too far and pinch your hand as you open it up and do the same thing as we talked about before. So interestingly enough, your pinching could be coming from releasing your nunchuck too late. So something I would try first is check your nunchuck out. See, just try to pinch it yourself, like without doing any technique. Just put your finger there and just twist it and see if it pinches your finger. The second thing I would try, of course, is tape it down if it is, and then also play with your release times as well as the techniques that you're using. Hand rolls, definitely. Anything that dealing with rolls are more prone. Anything dealing with the nunchuck going from one side to the other is more prone to pinch your hand. So I would definitely check that out first. I think between those three, you should be able to find a culprit. Sometimes people have really good nunchucks or really good nunchucks for flow, and they get spoiled. So when they actually go to other nunchucks, they'll pinch themselves a lot because they never actually used the techniques or had to learn any techniques about when their release time should be, just because they've always had great nunchucks in the past. So it's really interesting, actually, if you can have people that have spun nunchucks for a while and still pinch themselves the moment they change to a different chuck because they're so used to like this is spoils. Like, I didn't start with this one, so I'm not spoiled, but this can, like, certain nunchucks can spoil you and give you, I don't want to say bad technique, but a little bit lazier technique in terms of precision, just because it's so nice, so smooth. All right. Let's see here. Kenjutsu, welcome. Hoover, I want to say hello to you too. And hey, Aikiflow, good to see you too. Hope you're doing well as well. Yeah, everything. It's been a wild week for me, like I said, but it's been good, and I'm happy to be back here. Every Sunday, I plan on doing these regardless. Thursday's a little bit more in the air. Like, I have been doing it twice a week, but I'm trying to get back. Like, Patreon people are, I don't want to say antsy, but I just want to make sure I give them something. So last week I did a Zoom. So basically, for the ProTricks member on my Patreon, we did a Zoom where they could come in and train, and I could watch them train as well as train with them, and it was really fun. We just talked about UFC and getting older, and spun some chucks and gave some tricks, and I'm probably gonna do that every Tuesday for the ProTricks guys. But if you want in on that, this is my Patreon down there. If you're interested. If not, that's totally cool too. We always got Sundays. All right. I do see a question. Give me just a second here. Okay. Can you do some double chuck transitions when you have time? I've been fighting with it for days. Yeah, for sure. So, Kenjutsu, where do you have like a video that shows where you're at? With double nunchucks, it's really good to see where exactly you're standing with the chucks in terms of transitions. Like, the first big milestone is the 3-beat weave, I would say. Like, being able to get that is going to open up so much. If you can do that, let me know, because that'll change what I want to teach. If you don't have a video, or if you have a video just a video that kind of showcases where you are, or at least if you could tell me where you are, that would be super helpful. Let's see. Okay, that's all my questions I have for now. Thanks for your help. Hope everyone stays safe. Yeah, no, thanks for coming down and have an awesome time. Absolutely. I'm gonna go ahead and give some transitions for Kenjutsu here. I'm gonna go very basic, just because I don't know where you're at yet, but if you want to let me know where you're at, then I can alter my course. Give me just a second though. I need to turn on my dashboard so I can read, just in case you type while I'm teaching here, because as you can see, I can't really read what people are typing. Give me just a second here. All right, perfect. So double nunchuck transitions are a lot harder to do than single nunchuck transitions, simply because you don't have the other hand to stop. So double chucks are all about patterns and transitions that you can create, right? Singles, you can always catch it and stop it to change direction. Doubles, you can't really do that so easy. You have to find different ways that you can make things work. So the number one thing that I think is really handy dandy, one second here. Oh, cool, okay. Kenjutsu does have a video, so if you are able to send it to my email, or if you have another way to send it, my email is ken.flowtricks@gmail.com. ken.flowtricks@gmail.com. I'd be more than happy to take a look at that. Basic doubles, what most people know are the L strikes. Do you know those? If you don't, let me know. And then the other one is going to, so we have this type of motion, and then we have the weave kind of motions where they're kind of moving in a circle. And those are kind of like where things start off with. And then you have the hand rolls too, I suppose, where like we're doing this motion. Basically though, when you think about double nunchucks, one thing that's really important to consider is the fact that nunchucks move in two different directions, I want to say. And the directions that I'm saying is they're either going in the same direction, so both nunchucks are moving in the same direction. That's going to change the techniques you can do, or they're moving in an opposite direction. So this is going clockwise, this is going counterclockwise. This changes the moves that you can do. So if they're going the same direction, for instance, we can do a weave, right? But if I change a direction of one and they're going opposite directions, we can no longer do that weave. We can't do that weave. It's a lot trickier because that's just how the technique is set up. But what we can do are things like butterflies or thread the needles, or we can do like tricks. We can do bounces to get in between the two. But the important thing is when you're spinning doubles is to recognize if you're going same direction like this, or if they're going opposite direction, because that changes everything based on what you can do. Same direction, opposite direction, Or you can just have like this independent direction that's happening too, which we can cover as well. But the example that I wanted to show you with that is because if I'm doing one way, I can't switch it over to the other until I do something. So when you realize that you have two different move sets, opposite direction and same direction, then what you want to figure out is how can you get this, how can you change this at will? So if they're going the same direction, right, like this, you can do weaves, you can do two beats. You can't do it if they're going, well, you can do it if you're going opposite direction, but it's a little bit trickier. It's harder to do weaves though, going opposite direction, but you can get two beats in. Figure eights, as they would call it. Let me just double check really quick. I want to see if you sent anything. All right. So, what I'd like to see is, if you don't know this yet, see if you can just get them to spin in opposite directions like this, and just bring your hands together. If you don't know how to do this, this is just a simple, this is called a butterfly, and one hand is just slightly ahead of the other like this, right? When one hand's slightly in front of the other, this will mean the nunchucks won't crash. If they're at the same exact spot as I spin them, they're going to hit each other because they're traveling along the same path here. But if one hand is slightly ahead of the other, what we can do is we can spin them against each other like this. Then you're just going to kind of move your arm in a circle and lock them in together, and then you're just going to move it up and down. But if you look really close, this hand is in front, this hand's in back. This prevents the chucks from hitting each other like this. So it looks a little bit off from this side, but when we stand in front, it looks straightforward like this. This is a good one to learn. If you haven't learned this one, this is a good one because it's a good transition point. Plus, any time that your chucks are moving in opposite direction might be good to know. And the way to get past this, one easy way that I like to do it is you're going to spread it apart again like this, right? I'm going to pull your arms out. I'm going to take my left hand just to show you. And what we can do is we can just kind of, I don't know if you remember hyperstyle or if you've worked with hyperstyle, but we're going to do a hyperstyle bounce with our hands separated. So my left hand's going to roll over the top, and it's going to basically bounce off the deltoid, the back of my arm over here. So over here, boom. And what this bounce does is whenever you bounce it, it changes direction, right? But if you have double chucks, the moment you change direction, it changes all your move sets, because where they're going in opposite direction, the moment I bounce it and move it the other way, it's going the same direction now. This opens up all the weaves that we can do. So it's kind of nice to know that every time that your hands, if you just split your hands up like this, and then you just take one hand, like for instance, I can take my right hand and I can bounce it over the back of my tricep like this, and when I pull it back, it moves it, and then we have the other move set. This is opposite. See, one's going clockwise, one's going counterclockwise. But all I have to do is bounce one of them. So I'll just move this in the direction, bounce it, and now they're going the same direction again. I'll bounce it again, and then they'll go opposite direction. And I'll bounce it, and now they're going the same direction again. So that's a way that you can use to transition into your moves. You can get really clever. So if I'm like doing this 3-beat here, I can bounce it, and now we're going into, now we have this. We have the opposite direction. So all the moves that you know with your opposite direction, for instance, you might be able to do these hand rolls, you might not. But regardless, it doesn't matter. Just know that this exists, and the moment I bounce it, So you see, I did a number 3 bounce when I was doing this. So as I was going up here, I bounced it here. Then it turned into a weave because I changed the directions again. It's really wild. If none of that makes sense, because it can be a little complicated to like wrap your brain around, especially at first. If it does, fantastic. If it doesn't make sense, the easiest way to remember it is if you just bounce one of your chucks, it gives you the other move set. It's that simple. Just bounce one of your chucks to change the direction, and then your moveset changes. So if you do a move and you can't seem to figure out why it's not working, bounce one of your chucks and see if that was what it was. Okay, Kenjutsu says, what's the mail? So it's ken.flowtricks@gmail.com. That's ken.flowtricks, flowtricks, @gmail.com. gmail.com. Okay, Tunir says, wow, you do the moves with such ease. Helps us to learn fast. Thanks again for teaching us. Oh yeah, you're most welcome. Yeah, you know, just addicted. That's really all it is. Aikiflo says, do you know Zan's Diamond, either poi or chucks? I struggle changing with together opposite and split opposite, feels clunky. So Zan's Diamond was something I studied so long ago, I kind of forgot. Let's look it up really quick. I'm sure if I look at a refresher, I'll remember the terminology of Zan's Diamond. Hold on. I think I know it, but let me just see. Zan's Diamond. Zan's Diamond is a great, I know it has to do with double chucks. I'm just trying to remember. Oh, are we just, okay. Okay. If we're talking about, like, do you see this picture here where there's a diamond? I can kind of show you, I can show you some concepts with chucks with that one. I just want to make sure this is right.
Of lines. I'm going to talk you through it step by step and learn each of the techniques, and we'll piece it together in the entire move. Okay,
so with this type of motion, please keep in mind I have a simple version of Zan's Diamond. So I have an understanding of, you're talking about like being able to move your hands in this diamond, in this diamond-like pattern like this. So basically what we have is we have a point here, a point here, a point here, and a point here. And what you have are your chucks, and you're basically moving along different points. If that's what you're asking, I know some of the motions, like with Zan's Diamond, like that one, or this one. All of that is Nunchuck's version of it, which is a lot faster and cooler. Not kidding. But the easiest, if that's what you're looking for, the easiest way to talk or to handle it is basically, yeah, to be working on your motions and points and making sure if we're going in split time that the chucks themselves are touching in the center every time it's rotating. Touch. So if I'm here, you're going to see what I want to focus on is getting the chucks to touch in the center so the timing is correct. So you'll see that as these chucks are rolling around, it's always kind of hitting in the center. They just kind of meet up in the center basically. Now, it's been a long time since I've done a lot of these motions, but I definitely use the diamond. I don't think I've fully I don't think I use it fully though. Like the poi people are really nuts at it. I'm gonna open up my dashboard just to make sure I'm not missing anything here. I struggle between together opposite and split opposite. Feels clunky. So together opposite and split opposite. So you're talking about like if we're doing a diamond. So what we're talking about right now, in case you guys don't know what Zan's Diamond is, and I'm talking to Aikiflo, I think what we're talking about is the ability to move your hands along a diamond point. Point, 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 point. And if you're talking about, no, it's the other version, together opposite, moving the hands together. Together opposite, so if we're talking about this, I think is what you're looking at, together opposite. So they're moving at the same time, but they're in opposite directions. Is that right? So something like that. I don't know. Let me know if that's what you're looking for. I don't really use that one very often. Again, with nunchucks, I see people doing things like this, but it's just not one that I use a lot. I usually use same a lot. I do a lot of the same time stuff. Again, with together, one that I do a lot, if I do it, is if I'm doing like a reverse butterfly like this, I got it down by my stomach, and then I pull out, and again, they're meeting in the center, let them come up, and then it just kind of floats down. Is that what you were looking for? Let me know if that's what you're looking for. Split time, though. Split together. Wait, hold on. You know, unfortunately, I'm just not very good with these names, but I do know opposite is not my forte when it comes to stuff like this. So hopefully that one will help because I don't have a lot that I do with that. I definitely don't get into like those hybrid motions. That gets a little bit deeper into the poi side of things. I'm gonna say like I think a great person to watch if you're wanting to learn poi is Drex, Drex. I'm sure you guys may have heard about him, but you can definitely apply poi technique into nunchucks. I'm gonna go right back here. I'll show you what I mean. So another person to look out for, what's his name? If you're looking at like poi style nunchucks, Xander Paris. He's great. Check this guy out. Let's see. Oh, let's see if we can get a new one here. So I want to show you Xander because Xander is definitely like a nunchuck poi spinner. So this style is heavily influenced by poi. You can tell it doesn't have as much of a martial arts feel as some other styles, but it has a really fluid, smooth style. You can see the martial arts influence for sure, but in my opinion, like this is just like eye candy. Like it's great. It's super flowy, super circular. But if you're talking about like nunchuck poi flow, this would be the guy that I would watch. He's great. Let me see if I got one more here. Let's see if we can get one more of Xander. Xander Paris. He's great. But you can definitely see a poi style here. Isn't that great? Oh, that was fantastic. He's so smooth. So there are definitely like flow art spinners that are making waves with nunchucks. Xander's like one of the leaders. I would say one of the leaders in the poi spinning kind of style of nunchucks. Oh, hold on one second here. Give me just a second. You know how YouTube just keeps playing after you play it? Yeah, so Xander Paris is someone like, especially if you wanted to get more into the poi style, he would be fantastic to go further just because my style it grabs some of it, but it doesn't nearly go as deep as some of the other flow artists that I know, fire dancers and whatnot. Mine's more like fast, furious, and still, has that traditional flavor of martial arts in it. But it's not as fluid, and that was pretty cool. Either way, we just have different styles, but it's awesome. Okay, I'm gonna keep looking down here. Let me know if that helps. I hope that helps. Yes, but the hands move up to the side, hands stay together, and then change to split opposite. You know, Aikiflow also, if you're able to send me a video, it's easier for me to see it. I'm not very good at the words, unfortunately. Like the terminology often eludes me, even though when I see it, I kind of get what you're trying to say. If you have like a video of a demonstration of what you're trying to do, let me know. Or if you have a video of what you're doing, I'm sure I could figure it out. Or maybe I can even pitch it over to Drex and see if he's interested in chiming in. I think that'd be awesome. All right. Hi Ken, I'm training the anti-spin. Can you do an anti-spin in one direction or two? Yeah, you can do an anti-spin in both directions. Both directions. You can do anti-spins in both directions. We can work over that in a second here. Let me just make sure I got everything else. Yes, he has good flow. Yeah, Xander's great. Like I said, Xander has really good nunchuck flow. You can definitely see the poi influence, or I should say the flow arts influence, because I feel like I love flow arts, but I do feel like there's kind of this system that it follows, and you can see when someone follows that system, it has this really super fluid, what's like a geometric type of style fantastic. It's fantastic. All right, yeah, let's go into anti-spins really quick. Camera. So by the time flow arts became popular, right? So I'm gonna tell you, like in the beginning, nunchucks and flow arts, they were not related. When I first started, nunchucks, hula hoops, and flow arts were not connected at all. We were our own communities. So when I first started, it was before the flow arts really became big. So what happened was, when I started learning flow arts, I started integrating some basic flow arts moves, but as it came more down into it and the future generations came into nunchucks, they really, like they grew up with all the extra stuff that just wasn't around when I was doing it. So it gave us like a different style, which is nice, but it is definitely something to think about too. Like I could always polish off more of that. So when we're talking about anti-spins, if you're wondering about which direction, you can go both directions. So here's one direction. And then you have to change it the other way to go the opposite direction. Keep in mind, you can't anti-spin, you can't have this spin counterclockwise. Your arm can't go both directions. This is not considered an anti-spin, but this is, if that makes sense. So if you're wondering, can my arm move this way or this way, the answer is no. The anti-spin can only happen when the chuck is moving one circle and your arm is moving the opposite, like that. So if my hand moves this way, it wouldn't work because they're in the same direction. You'd have to, you could do it, but you'd have to change the direction of the chuck too. So if it's going this way, the hand would have to move the opposite way, or the hand would have to move this way. It has to be that way just because, yeah, you know, like I said, just like with doubles, either your hands are moving in the same direction or it's moving in an opposite direction. And that's what's going to create, this needs to happen to create the anti-spin. If it's like this, then what you have is something that looks like this, which is not an anti-spin. They call it an in-spin. It's really nice if you do it because you can kind of like add little stalls. You can add extra flavor to your spins. Like if you're spinning it, there's like this nice thing that happens, especially around the top. And I can show you this one. This is kind of nice, but it's not really an anti-spin. So if you're just spinning your chucks in a circle and then you just kind of let it go to the elbow, you have this nice circle that happens, right? Once it's around 12 o'clock, if you push your hand up around here, it's going to cause the chuck to kind of stagger, to kind of stall right here. Hold it for a second, lift it up and pull it again. And what you have is this kind of stalling motion that happens. And so we're moving it from the elbow. Once it hits about 12 o'clock, I'm pulling up to the top, which causes it to stall, and then I'm lifting it up and pulling it back out. It's nice to slow it down right there. It's just a nice little addition that you can do to add a little bit more flavor to your end spins. So if the chuck is going this way and your hand is going this way, it's an in spin. If the chuck is going this way and your hand is going the opposite way, it's an anti-spin. It's going to create a spirograph pattern. Hopefully that helps. All right. Hello, hello. You are great in the nunchaku. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. All right. So does anyone have any other questions so far about any tricks they need to learn or things they were looking into? I'm going to play a video while we wait, just because I'm really into the video thing right now. But if you do have questions, I'm going to return back to it in a second. Let's go ahead and go over back here. So key people that we talked about so far, Xander Paris is great at poi nunchucks, poi style nunchucks, or I should say flow art style nunchucks, really. He's just fantastic. Rob Nunchucks has some really great examples of contact style nunchucks where you can spin the chucks without, using your hands. And then I also want to show you a couple more, I want to say old school nunchuck stuff. When I first started nunchucks, one of the people that really got me into it was a guy named Matt Ches. I don't even know what this is. I'm just going to look at his concept moves here. We're just going to take a look. Keep in mind, this is when I was starting. So this is 2007. This is a long time ago. So these moves may or may not be. I don't know. We're going to discover together. But this guy was my idol for years. So he was one of the guys that I was trying to be like. But I eventually developed my own style. But I think I'm sure this will be a nice video to watch. Give you some ideas. He's very technical. Like, he has some really cool tech moves that are difficult to do. Right, over the shoulder wheel. So it's a normal wheel caught mid-aerial. Okay. So that's a good one to look at. So you basically throw straight into a wheel and then goes to a one-finger wheel. Reverse rebounds. This is pretty cool. So basically if you look at that, you're basically throwing the chuck, but then instead of catching it, you tap it right behind the balance point to cause it to redirect. I like it. Under the leg behind the back catch. Nice. Let's watch that one again. That is very hard. I'm gonna slow that down. That was, 240p. Hey man, this was like 13 years ago. So watch this. This is pretty sick. Throws it in the air. He hits it. Causes a Simex, almost like a moonwave, but it's a throw at the same time. That is so hard to do. That one's really, really good. I like that one. Ah, that's great. So I guess what I'll say with Matt Ches, especially nowadays, is like we've seen these moves now. It's the norm, but at this time he was like the guy that innovated and made most of these moves. Like a lot of us kind of followed in the footsteps of Matt Ches for the longest time. Good stuff though. Good stuff. Matt Ches is someone to follow. Like I said, because it's 12 years ago, some of the moves, like, you probably have seen, or at least a variation of it, but back in those days, like, did not. That was just something that you didn't see, so he's a fantastic spinner. I want to show you one more, which is mine. I just want to see here real quick here. Well, thank you. You're my friend, Ken. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I really do. I really appreciate y'all coming together to watch this video, too, this stream. I hope that I'm able to help you guys with where you are with your nunchucks. Ikeflow says, in your experience, do you know many people that sit in both camps, martial arts and flow arts? Most people come across, you're usually in one camp or the other. The answer is no, I don't. Most people don't cross-pollinate, and if they do, a lot of the people that do it are so heavily one way that it doesn't look the same to me. I feel like Xander's a good mix. I'm probably 75% doing my own freestyle nunchuck thing and 25% flow arts with regards to, because that's why I don't know a lot of the move names, because most of it was self-discovery for me. There are people out there that do follow those, but there's just very few and far in between. Most of the time when I see a flow artist pick up a nunchuck, it'll look like a poi basically. It won't have the uniqueness that makes it a chuck. It'll look very much like a poi or something else, or a club or something. But once in a while, you'll see someone that picks up the nunchucks and they do it like a poi or a club, but they also keep that flair that makes it unique, a nunchuck. I think one of the things that make a nunchuck unique is the fact that it has symmetrical sides. So being able to play with the fact that we have symmetry on both ends can really change the way that you flow with things. And I think if they're not capitalized on, it can end up looking just like other props, or even make you wonder, well, why don't you just pick up a poi and do it instead, you know? Like if you don't capitalize on the prop, like what its strengths are, and so what I'm trying to say, I guess, is like, if I learned a nunchuck, I think it's fine to pick up a poi and spin it like a nunchuck, but to really get the flavor out, you know, you can't treat it like a chuck. You gotta pull in the chuck ideas, but then you like have to understand the personality of the poi and allow it to adapt. That's my long-winded answer. I wish there was more. Ikeflow, maybe you will be one, or maybe you already are one, I don't know. But Xander's probably one of my favorites in that regard. I have a couple other names that I could drop, but a lot of them don't have videos. Like a lot of them aren't online. Let's see. I love my nunchaku. Me too. Could you pick one trick and show me how many different ways you could perform it, just to give me a bigger perspective on the variations I can use? Oh yeah, sure. So let's pick a trick. let's pick a trick. Let's do a wrist roll, right? This is a big one because it's like you have a wrist roll, right? This one could go a lot of different ways, but let's just take a look at what can make a wrist roll different, okay? One is you have the forward version of the wrist roll, which is where we're slashing down and then doing the front to back, slashing down, doing the back to front. That's one variation, or that's the core. But then don't forget you can do the opposite too, where instead of slashing down and down, you slash up and do a hand roll. This is the reverse version of the figure 8 wrist roll. If you know the reverse, then you can throw a bounce and you can go between the two. Right? But right now my hand is kind of in space. So we got the front and the reverse, and both of these, everything we do after this can be done front and reverse, but let's just go ahead and keep it going here. So if we're going back to the regular wrist roll, now you know you can go in forward and reverse, and right now we're kind of doing it by the body. What we're going to do is, as soon as it spins to the front, we're going to extend our hand into an extension like this. So now I'm going to do a front to back hand roll in the front, and then I'm just going to kind of hold it in the back. So now it's an extension wrist roll here. So that's a variation. And if we bounce it, then we do a reverse one, which is we'll do a front to back hand roll. Usually what I'll do is I'll add an extra beat there. So what you're going to see is almost like a reverse figure 8, but it's going to roll behind the shoulder and to the front. So if I do it that way, I can do here, and then it's a hand roll here, here. So now what we have are like these great extensions that we can do, right? But we don't always have to just keep it on this side. We can pull it over the neck too. So as I do a reverse here, this one opens up to where I can pull it over to the back of the neck and reverse down this direction too, right? Then we think, well, you can do wrist rolls and you can pull it over the neck. Can you pull it over other parts? And the answer is yes. So I could hold out my arm, for instance, and I could do hand rolls through my arm. So that opens up a whole nother ballpark, because you can also do wrist rolls not just here, but I mean, just if you think about it, if we're doing a front wrist roll here, we can pull it behind the arms, and that creates a different kind of motion. We can pull it behind the back of the neck. We can also do it across the body, here, and then back to this direction too. And what this will do is this will give us variety in terms of we can do a wrist roll here, and then as we pull it back, it has to be a reverse wrist roll on the other end. But then you think, well, if you can do a reverse wrist roll here and a wrist roll here, can you do one behind the back here? It's harder to do a wrist roll behind, but you can also just add a little extra spin to the back. So you can do a wrist roll, a reverse wrist roll here. So a reverse, and then we go to a regular, and then we can add this little extra loop that happens there, right? And if you can add it there, you can also add it by your shoulders. So we can also add wrist rolls through this part here. So we can add wrist roll, wrist roll. There's a lot of possibilities just with wrist rolls. Obviously, you can slide it through more different variations, and all you have to do is change one little element of it to come up with something completely different. I think those are kind of the big wrist rolls in terms of the figure 8 wrist roll variations, but there's always more. I mean, because we didn't even cover horizontals or reverse horizontals, but you can do that. And then you can also think, well, can I do a wrist roll in a horizontal but then turn it to a vertical? And yes, you can. You can go here, add a little stall, and turn it this direction, and then we can have a wrist roll going in 2 different directions. But in order to do that, you have to learn something called a stall, which means we have to stop it for a second before we go. So we add a little bit of force to change the direction, and all of a sudden we have this different kind of a wrist roll. And we haven't even gotten to, like, if you're doing a wrist roll, what if you passed your wrist rolls? What if we added rotor passes to our wrist rolls, then all of a sudden we have passes. And if we have passes, then we should be able to turn with them too. All from a wrist roll, of course. So now what I did with the wrist roll is I added a rotor pass, and I realized that like if I'm doing a wrist roll here, if I do a rotor pass, I can transfer it to my other hand. And because I can transfer it, I can also do turns with it. Which is pretty wild, right? So if you think of it that way, then you can say, well, what if I added a throw? What if I added a new technique? What if I added a finger roll? What if I added this? And it goes on and on and on and on. So I'd like to think of space. I think of certain techniques. I think of speed. And I think of location, different parts of the body while doing the same thing. And then I think of planes. horizontal, vertical, doesn't matter. When you start thinking on all these multiple dimensions, you realize a lot of the tricks outside of wrist rolls, they can share a lot of these same features. It doesn't always have to be the wrist roll. It just tends to be the most common bread and butter move. Finger rolls, a lot of it can be done in the same fashion. You can come up with ideas or infinite rolls or things like that. So it just goes on and on, right? But that's kind of like if you want to look at variations of the same move, that's where you can go with it. If you ever get stuck, think of another technique that you can do and see if you can incorporate it with the wrist roll to turn it into something new. Or take out an element of the wrist roll, maybe just do one wrist roll and then do another technique into it and then finish your wrist roll and see if you can come up with something like that too. All right. Let me see here. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, no, it's perfectly fine. I can understand your English. Great. Kenjutsu asks, how's the DVD coming? It's coming slowly but surely. I've been running into a problem where I'm kind of my own critic right now. So I've got some things recorded, but I'm not happy with it. I actually have a new camera coming in soon that I think will help out just because I want this thing to look good. So, and then as you mentioned, or if you could noticed, one of my lights went out. So I'm getting a new light system, which is why I look very red right now. I usually have two lights to kind of like give the right. I have these heavy shadows happening right now just because I have one over here. So it's like if I'm going to record all these videos, I want to make sure that everything looks good. I might be a little bit too much of a perfectionist, but I definitely need to get that light fixed. Yeah. All right. But it is going, and obviously it's going to be epic. So I'll start, and it's true, I'm going to start sharing a lot of the videos online as well. Some of it will go to the YouTube channel. A lot of it will go onto Patreon, just in case people don't want the DVDs, or also for the fact that I can add more after it's done, whereas a DVD may be stuck the moment I get it pressed and processed. Like having an online version of it is nice because it can organically change or grow, or if I need to make any modifications to a move later, because maybe I could clarify better, then I can still do that. So with that said, we are at the 8 o'clock mark, and I think we're good for today. I think this has been a really good session. We are going to do this again next Sunday, either 5 or 7. It kind of varies between the two. We're going to do this again next Sunday, though, somewhere either 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock. And always more than happy to answer your questions. If between now and then you want me to check out your video or to showcase the video, kind of like what we've been doing today, be sure to send me a message. It's ken.flowtricks@gmail.com. ken.flowtricks@gmail.com. Super happy, always happy to watch. Actually, you know what? I just realized I want to make sure. I just remembered that I had a video sent to me and I didn't look it over yet. Let's get to that video really quick. Okay. I'm going to answer a couple last questions here, actually. I do see another question, and I totally forgot a video was sent to me, so let's cover these before we head out. Give me just a second here. First, we're going to look at this video here. This is by Kenneth Scott. Love the name, Kenneth. Nice. Nice. Those are split opposite hand rolls. Oh yeah, got the little one involved too. The L strikes right there. Yeah, this is great. So the L strikes is a good example of opposites. You know, when I was saying there's two different directions, those are going in opposites, whereas the other move that you were doing was going in same time. Those are going to be the two divisions. So those are in opposites, right? So one's going clockwise, the other's going counterclockwise if your arms were to move into a circle. Nice. Good clutch. That's cute. So that was in same direction. That was a weave. So eventually you'll be able to take a look at that and see. That was opposite direction. See how they're moving in opposites? So that gives you access to that throw, which is fantastic. That's cute. That's great. I'm gonna go back to the beginning really quick here. So right now you are doing a lot of opposites, which is great. When you're talking about a transition, I just want to take a look at this again. Yeah, that's opposite as well. Okay. So let's go ahead and go back here really quick. So what I'm seeing from there is a lot of opposites work, which is great. We're talking L strikes, we're talking throws. Where is it? So opposites work is like, this is the throw, right? And if you were to really look, like if you were to look at it, it would be like this. This is kind of the direction that this is going, down, down, right? So they're kind of going down, down. It's kind of the same motion, right? And if you reverse the direction this way, then you're doing the other opposites that you're doing, which is the hand rolls. You're working on the hand rolls. So you've been working in opposites for a while. And what will throw everything off on your part is going to be the thing that I'd recommend that you try. Because right now, you've got one mode down pretty good. Like you got the foundation of the one mode. Let's go ahead and get the other mode started. And to get the other mode started, you just need to bounce at one time the opposite direction to reverse it. So if you're here, right? Let's go ahead and, well, that's also a good transition. Let's go from here for a second. So you're doing these rolls here. What I'd like to see you do is just kind of bounce it off of your leg or off of your arm or wherever you want to. You can bounce it off of here. But what it's going to do is it's going to change directions to the same time, like this. And then we're back to where we were talking about. First, if you want to start off, you can start with 2 beats like this here. Eventually, you'll be able to come up with some cool moves, some other moves, but that's a good start. So if you're coming up, okay, let me give you an easier one. When you're doing your hand rolls, just hold your hand down so you don't do the hand rolls anymore and just do it this way for a second. That way you can get a bounce in and go straight into your 2 beats. Because if you're doing hand rolls and you do a bounce from a hand roll, there's a good chance that you're going to be in a back grip in the other one. And if that's the case, then you're going to have to get it back to a front grip. So if you're doing your hand rolls, an easy way to do that is just to stop doing hand rolls for a second, just till you can get to the 2 front grips so you can do a bounce, like a number 3 bounce. And that's going to cause things to move in the same direction. And you're going to have noticed you can no longer do this motion like this anymore because it's the opposite one. So what you're going to have to work on then is getting into 2 beats, eventually getting into 3 beats, but it's going to open up all those other moves that you're wondering how to transition in and out of. So we'll start with this one. If you want to have a little bit of fun, see if you can do a hand roll while one hand's crossed. So when your arm's crossed like this, see if you can do a hand roll and a hand roll. Hand roll and a hand roll. So that can add a little bit more flavor, and you might even be able to do 2 hand rolls. 2 hand rolls. Now that gets a little bit harder. So we're going to just start with this, but if you're bored with this one, see if you can do a hand roll even with just one hand to start with. And then once you've been doing this a little bit, just to get the feel of it, do the bounce again, and look, you're back to this motion again, so you can go back to this. This will help you with your transitions because, like I said, a lot of your motions, this is you're going downwards with opposite, and you're going upwards with opposite, but you haven't gone same direction yet. At least not in the video. And so I think that would be a good habit to get into, is starting to work on those. That way, whenever you do a bounce, because what I think right now is if you change directions outside of those 2 modes that you have, it may be a bit of a struggle to be able to figure out the other moves. So even when you're over here, you can I'll show you a nice little transition from here too, which is you can also go horizontal here, and this will kind of help you get into a transition of another kind of doubles movement, which can also set you up for weaves eventually. So like there's another way that you can get into this from triangle strikes. But one way I just want to start you off with is just basically spinning it sideways like this, holding one elbow up, one elbow down. We kind of went over this in Pro Tricks pretty deeply on Tuesday, but holding one elbow up, one elbow down, and kind of bouncing it back and forth. That will kind of help you with your L strikes. So you have your L strikes, see how your elbow's already up there, you can just kind of swing it back and forth. Eventually, you'll be able to bounce it up and down, something we can cover, and that'll help you to pull straight into your weaves. But when you first start, let's just see if you can do that. So here, start bouncing it sideways, like that. And that's as far as we'll go right now, but that will give you control to change your direction the moment you start thinking horizontally. And again, the other one, of course, you're doing these split opposite hand rolls, the one I saw you do. Then just stop rolling it for a second so it just becomes this regular spin, and then do a bounce. and then you're stuck in this opposite motion where you can turn and do your figure eights, where you can add a hand roll if you want, or not. It's totally up to you. But there's a little bit of options for you. Okay, let's see. Wow, got a few things here. Make awesome thumbnail. Hey sir, I am righty. That my left hand is weak when I use nunchucks help. Sure. Hey sir, I'm ready. That's my left is weak. Hey sir, I think you might be a little bit stuck there. If your left is weak, right? The hardest part about a weak hand is there's no easy answer except for drilling it. So, the easiest way to work your left hand, easiest way to get a hand down that's being stubborn, that is weak, that does not want to work, is to, the way I worked it out, because my left is bad, is to watch TV. You watch TV and you try to do the moves that are really hard, and it's going to look really bad at first, but you're focused on the television, but you're actually focused on your hand. What I'm trying to say is, if you think too hard, if you focus too hard on what your hand is doing and not doing, you may actually be making it harder for your hand to learn. So what you need to do is just let it go, watch a show, and do this for like an hour, maybe 2 hours. Just spin it back and forth. It'll be sloppy, but the whole point is you need to do it over and over and over again. And if you put your mind somewhere else, it will help you to just do it without thinking about it. The moment you can do it without thinking about it, you will be in good condition. But until you can get to that point, there's no easy answer to make your weak hand better. My left is always weak. I will say this, I don't train the same moves on my right and my left. My left hand has totally different moves than my right hand does. Some moves are the same, most of them are different. And this is a unique way of approaching flow arts. Most people say learn the same moves, same hands, and learn the opposite direction. But for me, I say, if it goes to my left, I do a different bunch of moves. If it goes to my right, I do different moves. And in my opinion, I think that gives you more moves as a whole. The only time I learn the same moves is if I need to move with it or turn with it, because then you need to be able to transfer the move over. Otherwise, I like to, my chain unwinder with my left hand is so much better than my right, and I can't even do the thumb roll with my right hand. It's just not something I can do, and I don't really care to do it because I can already do it with my left. So why would I do it with my right? I mean, unless I needed to transfer it over to my right, there's no point because my left can already do it. But for me, I feel like that gives me more flexibility, gives me more options than if I taught both my hands the same thing. But I'm not as rounded. I'm not as well rounded, and most people will probably disagree with that style. Most people will probably say to learn both the same. So take it for what it's worth. But my recommendation is learn different moves. It'll make it more fun, and your hand is not learning the same thing. It's not as boring because your right hand learns something, your left hand learns something too. You're gonna have different skill sets. You know, in martial arts, my left was more flexible and my right was more powerful. That's just what it was. So when I had to do flexible moves, I would use my left foot, and when I wanted to blast into someone, I'd use my right foot. All right. By the way, Ken, your spreadsheet for Chucks gave me some ideas for attacks with the staff and how they fit together. Awesome. Good to hear. Good to hear. Kenjutsu, brother, you're mine and my son's hero. We go to the park and spin and film every day. Thanks for everything, sir. You're most welcome. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. So Sri Seth, I think you might have sent the message a few times, but hopefully that answers your question. I like nunchaku. Good. You're a great teacher. Oh, I'm glad. Thank you. I appreciate that. I learned nunchaku from you. You're a myth to me. Well, I really appreciate that. I learned it. I want to share it. I want other people to experience it. I hope some of you perform it in front of people. I hope some of you guys are able to perform and show your skills and even get paid for it. Even if it's just one time, there's no feeling like making people happy, just like teaching it too. It makes people happy, gives them a purpose, and it's really fun. Pretty awesome. I'm gonna go check my Facebook again because my Facebook is always notorious for not showing any of the questions. Perfect. So with that said, I hope you all are safe, happy, healthy, good. Sorry, Hawkeye, we're just finishing up. But we'll have another stream next Sunday, either 5 o'clock or 7. I'm not sure yet. You guys let me know. What works better, 5 or 7? But until then, you know, you guys stay happy and healthy. And if you need anything, ken.flowtricks@gmail.com, and we'll cover it on Sunday. All right. Everyone take care, and I'll see you all soon.